Okay, my first name Carice, Caurice. Last name Wynter with a Y, Wynter. I'm from the Bronx, New York. So, what brought me to Quinnipiac? I applied to a lot of medical schools in the Northeast area, and it kind of just depended on where I got into. I just felt like I needed to get into one medical school, and it just so happens Quinnipiac offered me an interview, and I got into this school. And the reason I chose it in relation to other schools that I got into, for example, Upstate University in Syracuse, New York, is because I've been away from home for so long. Connecticut is like an hour away from the Bronx, hour and a half. So I wanted to be closer to home because I knew that I would need my family in a rigorous academic curriculum of medical school, yeah. So when I first came to Quinnipiac, like I have a strong support system. I have a big family. My family's Jamaican, and I have a lot of cousins. Grandmother supports me throughout everything. So I have a lot of friends as well. Like people always joke about like, you have so many friends, but that is really what brought me through to medicine and throughout like medical school each year. My mom is a strong support system. My parents, they really held me down throughout everything I was going through. In terms of resources, like I tried to connect with other minority students my first year, and I did have a good amount of friends that were like in medical school, so we would study together and stuff like that. And in terms of resources, it was hard to like find a professor to connect with, but like very early on, I connected with a professor, Dr. Copes, and I felt like through everything I went through, even from the very beginning in first year, she was like my point person. Like if something was going on, I would go to her. For example, like I remember towards the end of the year, my first year, I lost my grandfather. He was in Jamaica, and it was like a finals week. So there was like 10 days left to the semester, and for some reason, like throughout whatever I go through, I try to push through no matter what. So it was never really an option for me to like delay the test. So I would call on Dr. Copes, and I just distinctly, like I could envision and remember her like staying extra after classes to help me with anatomy especially. So she's done that throughout the year, and that has helped me pass a lot of exams, just like getting that extra attention that I needed because I was going through, a lot.
I'm Lynn Copes, and I'm an associate professor in the Department of Medical Sciences at Quinnipiac University. So I teach in the first and second year curriculum mostly. I teach anatomy to the first year medical students. So I met Carice during her first year, and she quickly made it clear that she was very interested in studying disparities not only in the healthcare that patients receive, but also in disparities of how students experience med school on their way to becoming physicians. I also, along with teaching anatomy, serve as a coordinator for the medical humanities concentration, which is where Carice decided to locate her capstone project. And she asked if I would be her mentor, and it has been a total joy to work with her over the last 4 years. Her interests and mine align in that I am also really curious about the ways in which medicine, science, and my particular area of study, anthropology, have traditionally been extraordinarily racist historically and in the present, and how that has impacted the educational environment of people of color and their health. And so when Carice proposed working on a project to examine ways in which Black students in medicine face different stressors than white students, and asked if I could help with that. I signed on right away.
Oh my God, I feel like Dr. Copes is like a family member to me at Quinnipiac. She has been an advocate for minority students since I came here, and you know, there's not many like her. I just don't know how to explain. Like, she's so genuine. She does things from her heart because she actually really cares, and like, you don't feel like you'll be judged if you go to her and talk to her about, like, you know, this comment made me feel this way, or you know, I felt like this professor called me someone else's name and it made me feel bad. Like I could go to her about pretty much everything. Like when my mom was sick, I went to her and I was telling her like how it was affecting my work. So I feel like around her, I could have no filter. Whereas if I were to go to different professors at school, I would probably not be like open to talk about my personal life, or like maybe not sure if they will understand like where I'm coming from. My medical school journey has been difficult, to say the least. Like, I feel like I've had a hard journey just with life. Life happened to me a lot. The rigors of the academia is crazy to begin with, and just when someone is going through life at the same time, it was more difficult for me to like have a focus on solely academics when I had a family life that I have to deal with. I have a child now, so I did go through a lot throughout my 4 years so far.
So Carice and I actually met at the second look, which is like the day the medical students who have accepted get to come back to the school before they start. And I just remember really like relating to Carice because we're from the same area. And so when she was in my narrative medicine group, which is a class that we get to sit and think about ideas and reflect on our experiences in society, Carice actually raised and opened up about her experiences as a person of color and the struggles that she's faced against racism, and I just remember being very struck by her strength and her poise and just confidence to actually open up to the level that she did with the group, which I think I just remember being one of the most memorable narrative medicine sessions I've ever had, just because of how much I think her experiences resonated with the rest of the group, that in a way that these are not things that they had gone through, and it opened their eyes and their perspective in seeing one of their peers kind of going through these things. And so I just remember just being very impressed with Carice. And then we kept in touch throughout the 4 years in medical school because she was interested in various fields, and because she just was always like, she was just such an amicable person, just coming in and letting us know of how she's progressing through her curriculum.
I think it definitely contributes. Like, that's the first thing you see when you walk in the room. So like, you know, I've had to deal with prejudice before medical school and during medical school. I think a main thing is just like feeling like you don't belong in the place. So we call it imposter syndrome, like feeling like you're imposter, feeling like, you know, you got into medical school, they made a mistake. Like that's a really real thing that I know some of my classmates have experienced. And, you know, I've heard stories of other minority students, like projects that I've done just to get their views. And it's been the same feeling, like, I don't belong, I don't fit in. Like, should I really be in medicine? Is this the right thing for me? Am I good enough?
I would say the biggest challenge that I had to face was recognizing that I had a different place in society, and it's not something that I recognized despite being an immigrant to this country and going through education. I think we were always just kind of taught to kind of just be a unified group, and the schools that I went to were very diverse, and growing up in New York and New York City, were constantly around diversity. And I had role models who were, of BIPOC origin, and so just assumed that that's how, everyone was. And then I think it was in moving to Connecticut, being a physician of color, I realized that I didn't have the same reach. I didn't have the same strength in my, like when I was telling our patients, this is what needs to happen, this is what needs to, what you need to do. It was harder for me to make that impression that I think many of my other colleagues who were not of BIPOC origin were able to do. And so I think that made me feel like I wasn't a good doctor, that maybe I didn't have the same skill set, even though, I'd always aced all my standardized tests and all of those things. Like, I just was like, what am I doing wrong? And I had to really learn the soft skills, the assertiveness, the communication skills that were necessary to kind of overcome that implicit barrier that was there, right? And because like when I walked into the room, I would often get, oh, you're Dr. Thomas? I was expecting a man. Or, like even though I'd have to be like, well, Thomas is my last name, just as an example, constantly being referred to as a nurse or someone else in the healthcare system, not ever being recognized as a physician. There were so many instances like that I had to learn the language for, learn how to address, because every one of those diminishes your ability to be effective in what you do unless you're ready for it. And so I had to learn to be prepared for that, and that I think many of my colleagues in medicine face in any field, right, face in terms of diversity.
I don't know who I was talking to, but I was just talking about the fact that I am excited to make this documentary. I'm like, I have a Black team. Like, I have a Black journalist and a Black filmmaker. Like, that's amazing to me. I feel like there's a layer that does not need to be explained when you like experience the same race and the same culture, the same like biases. So as a physician, like especially when I become attending and feel like I have more power, I will be able to give more advocacy because I will be knowing their internal fears. Like, oh, I can't trust this medical person because they don't really care about me. Like, I will be able to go the extra mile for my patients because I know the mistrust that they have firsthand because I've had it. I've seen it with my family. My family would never want to go back to the hospital because of what happened with my aunt. So I just want to be able to protect Black women, protect Black people, and just have them open up to me and maybe tell me things that they wouldn't be able to tell other doctors. And I think that would make my care phenomenal because I will be able to dig deeper and not just be treating someone based on their disease, but treating the person because life affects your health. So I would want to know more about my patients than just their symptoms.
We know that especially among minoritized communities, people who have a doctor who look like them have better, healthier outcomes. And I don't say that to give any white physician a pass on treating people of color. That's not what I mean, because they've got to be better. But we also desperately need to increase the percentage of people of color who have the opportunity to go into medicine, one, because it's the right thing to do, but two, because it is going to overall improve the health of our nation.
Why did you decide to be a part of the admissions committee?
I really, really enjoy talking to smart people about big problems that I don't know how to solve. And I find that when I interview, the majority of applicants I talk to are enthusiastic, they're not jaded, and they've had a real wide variety of experiences, and some of them have fantastic ideas for how to address these big issues. Whether it's people who have really focused on policy and have an idea of the sorts of lobbying they would be interested in to solve a specific issue, or somebody who, because of their family's own struggle to get insurance, knows the insurance system inside and out and could teach me more about the nuances of it, and then has ideas for how to reform it. Or people who have done some volunteering in very rural areas, or in places with people who are experiencing homelessness. And they have had these interactions, and they remember a specific patient, and they like light up when you ask them, because they connect with people and they're passionate about improving the care. So one, it feeds my soul, and it keeps me remembering that there are so many people who want to make the world a better place. They're not yet burned out. And I do feel like we owe them to try to reform medical education so they never get to be burned out. But also, I then have some power. I do have the ability to walk into an admissions committee meeting and advocate for the student who may not have the highest standardized exam score, but who has a passion, who has a special story, who I know will make Netter, our school, a better place, and from whom I think our other students would learn a lot.
Internal medicine, 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. And I just found out I was pregnant. That was like morning sickness. I remember we didn't even get a lunch break. We would be working in conferences during lunch. And I would like run to the bathroom and like have to throw up. So it was just kind of very scary to me. Like, I am growing a child. I'm trying to save people. I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to make an impact. So that whole year of like just being on rotations and trying to like transition into that and being pregnant was just crazy to me. And I just found out like when I became pregnant, relationships like with friends kind of change. And just in general, third year kind of changes the aspect of your relationships with your classmates, because you don't see them every day and you used to see them all the time. So you kind of I felt real alone. Like, I didn't have like the supportive friend, like classmates that I thought, I didn't have that same relationship third year that I thought I would. And I was pregnant and going through these hard rotations. I just felt alone. I was sad. I was just trying to make it through for my family, for my child. And just once I gave birth to Michaela, it was just crazy too, because everything about my year was complicated, like even down to when it came to giving birth. I actually started prepping for step 1 while I was pregnant. So step 1 is the exam that you have to take to basically be a licensed physician or apply to residency. So I was like really pregnant, like 7 months at the time, and I was studying all these same hours, like the 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. thing, and it was just like too much on my body. So I had decided to take a pause with that and like not study for the test anymore. And then when I had Michaela, like I did my whole rotation the whole time. Like I was doing the same thing everybody else was doing. I went through 40 weeks. I remember like my last day of rotation was my due date. And I went into the hospital after that rotation. And it was just like, wow, I really did all those things. I remember just having to feel like a super person, like having to, even though I'm pregnant and, you know, health stuff going on, I feel like I had to be more powerful than everyone else. Like I feel like I didn't make any excuses for myself. I had something to prove, to the point, I think one point I remember throughout my pregnancy is when I was on my OB rotation and I was doing a C-section. So I was like first assist on the C-section. My belly was really, really big like this. But I was trying to like preceptor that I was working with, I didn't really get much like guidance of what to do for that day, that particular day. So I decided to go and scrub in on a surgery from a different preceptor. So I felt like as the surgery was going on, I was getting hot, I was getting dizzy, but like I was trying to be strong because, you know, I didn't want to look weak in the OR. Like this is the first time I'm meeting this person. And then I passed out. The nurse caught me as I was falling back, and when I got up, the first thing I was thinking was like, oh my God, like I feel so bad that I passed out in the OR. Like people are gonna, like in my head, thinking, oh, people are gonna think I'm weak or something. Then I sat to myself like, you know, they willed me out, you know, told me to sit down. I drank some juice, like try to eat and stuff like that. And I continued to go to work that day. And in my head, like reflecting back on it, like there's some times that people put medicine and work and stuff above their health. And I'm like so mad at myself that I had a whole child in me and myself that could have got injured. Why was I worried about perception or like feeling like weak in the moment where I should have been like, am I okay? Is my baby okay? And they should have just plain sent me home. Like even if, you know, I tried to fight, look, oh no, I'm good. They should have just been like, nah, you should go home. Because in that moment, I wasn't thinking for myself. I was thinking about, oh, medicine, I have to look a certain way. I have to be a certain way. So that was one of my regrets. And I never like tried to put medicine over myself or my child after that moment. So then 2020 started. Like I was on 4 weeks of like studying for STEP at home because I still was trying to like study while like my baby was just weeks old. And then the day I was going to return to finish my psychiatry rotation, the day before my grandmother died. And that was just like the craziest thing for my family. Like she was getting older, she had dementia and cancer, and you know, it's never a good time. It's never like, no one is ever gonna really accept that. So when it really happened, this happened the day like my child was christened, so like blessed. And that's like a big moment for a baby, like when, you know, you bring them to get christened and baptized. And I just like, my grandmother passed on that day. She waited for that to happen. She waited to be around her family. And that was just crazy. And it was so emotional for my family and myself. And I still felt like I had to push through. And like I said, my family is always going to be pushing me like, no, you have to be strong, because they already understood all that I've went through and how hard it is being a minority physician, and, you know, the treatment that may be unfair at times. So they were like, you should go. So I built up the courage to go to work for the first time after having a baby, and the day before my grandmother passed away. So I was driving from New York to Connecticut. So I just remember like that whole ride just crying, like that whole day just being emotional, like I can't believe this is happening to me. Like I'm supposed to be trying to gear up to, you know, prove myself, and I just tried as much as I could to push through. So I was doing that rotation, taking exams while planning my grandmother's funeral, while going back and forth from the Bronx to Connecticut. And then that was February. March, COVID happened. My dad got sick like the first couple weeks after the first case came to New York. And that was a crazy experience as well, like feeling like, what the hell is going on this year? Like, why so many terrible things happening? And just having to fight for my parents, like, and myself and my baby, like, because COVID, you can't have, her dad was not able to come in the house. Like my family wasn't able to physically be there to assist me. So it was just like a whole emotional like roller coaster the entire time. Like, especially when my dad like really got like sick and had trouble breathing, and my mom like was looking so weak, and we had to like rush them to the hospital. Like I was not getting, I felt like I called the ambulance and no one was really coming, and when they came, the ambulance was trying to route us to the hospital that my aunt died in. I'm just like, please, can you take us somewhere else? Like, my dad is really gonna not wanna go there. I know how he feels about that. They didn't even really wanna come in the house because they were scared about COVID. So they were, one, trying to make my dad walk out the house when he needed assistance. So that was like number one. They were mad, like, because we didn't have masks. And I'm just like, where were we supposed to get masks from? There was a shortage of masks. Like, I'm a medical professional. I didn't have a mask. So we were dealing with it as best as we could. So that was a strike. And then just the fact that they were like, because of saying their policy would not allow them to reroute us to somewhere else, I was just like, you know what, forget it, just go. I jumped in the car, like reversed the car out of the driveway and got my parents in the car and rushed to the hospital. As I'm driving down, I see them parked on the ambulance parked on the corner. I'm like, so you just realized that you could not help me. Why are you still sitting there? It's a global pandemic and people are dropping out like flies. You should be rushing to the next person. I'm driving, like, it was just like the most hectic time in my life. I was like talking to my friend Rashad on the phone, like on speaker, like, I can't believe this is happening. Like, you know, daddy is having trouble breathing. I'm rushing him to the hospital. He's just trying to tell me to calm down. Because at this point, I'm like running through lights. My dad is holding on like this. Everybody's scared. It was just a mess. And I can laugh about it now because everybody is okay and we're good. But it was just like, damn, like I'm coming down the ramp the wrong side. And you know, you see in the movies, in Grey's Anatomy, the ambulance comes, all the doctors are running out, let me put them on none of that was happening. Everybody was just like, because of COVID, everyone was just like scared to like be around anyone. So it was like, I'm trying to tell them, you looking at me crazy because I'm running down the ramp the wrong way. But can you help me? Because I got my whole life in the car right now and I need some assistance. So it was just crazy. My dad got rushed in because, you know, he was the sickest out of all of us. And it was just like it was like a war zone, these outside tents. And then people are being triaged and they wanted like people who were 30 and under to go to one side and people who are 30 and above to go to one side. So they sent me to the left, basically. And my mom was just over on the right trying to fend for herself. And I'm like, not feeling right, like something is going on. I know that she's not getting what she needs. And I just said, you know what, forget about me right now. I'm gonna go over there, see what's going on with her. They were trying to discharge her, send her home with albuterol, like an asthma pump, and say, you know, go home and if anything, come back, whatever they were trying to say. I had to fight with them, like, I don't wear medical student on my face. Nobody knows that. I know what I'm talking about. People just see me as a regular black girl from the Bronx. Like, so I'm just like, why are you not trying to at least get her in the emergency room so you could evaluate her further? I'm like, she's throwing up. She hasn't eaten for 6 days. Whoever I'm talking to, I don't know if there's a nurse, a doctor. Like, I don't know who the guy was, but he was a worker there because everyone wears the same scrub, so you can't really tell. And he's like going back and forth with me, and I was just sitting there like, I'm not about to leave until you take care of my mom. Like, I had to get real crazy because they were going to you're going to release her back into my care, and I can't even help her. So after going back and forth, they finally let her in, and then my parents were in the hospital for 11 days, and that was just crazy trying to coordinate. She's on this side, he's on this side. I'm calling to try to talk to them. He can't reach the phone, he's too weak, like he can't talk because of the ventilation. And you can't visit them, and that's something that, like, I feel like there was a certain part of me that, likes to have control, like, and I feel like if I'm in the room, I can control what's going on with their kid because I see their vitals. I could talk to the doctors, but that was kind of stripped away from me, and it was just like for my parents being separated, like they've been married almost 30 years at this point. He's on one side of the hospital, she's on one side of the hospital. So my mom would call me crying like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I haven't been able to talk to your dad, and there's like a code going on. So it was just like something that no one's ever experienced, and I would never want anybody to experience it again. And I hope that, you know, as a country, we have learned from this pandemic, and that we could just never find ourselves in this situation again, because we're still going through it. It's still a pandemic, and people are still dying. I hear about people dying every day. And it's just a real, it's real emotional to just see so many people, young, old, blue, black, brown, dying all the time. So that was a really hard thing for me. So like I said, I was still in school this whole time, so I'm trying to push through. This is like transitioning into my 4th year at this point. So trying to help my parents recover from COVID, having my young baby, I still was trying to study for board exams, particularly step 1, and, you know, get my application ready for residency, email, get letters of recommendation. And I took that test again, 8 hours, 8-hour test, sitting there all day, studying. From the time I wake up, 7 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 7 a.m., 11 a.m., 6 a.m., 11 p.m. Like, it's just like all day, all night, I was trying to study and trying to be a new mom at that. And then the whole thing with George Floyd was going on at the same time. Like, black people were getting killed left and right. Like, racism was crazy. How was I supposed to be able to focus on the books when I'm looking at the news and people just dying for no reason? Black people are getting shot, and, you know, maybe it's not hitting my classmates the same because, you know, they can't envision it being their brother, their uncle, their father, their husband, but it was hitting me emotionally. But still, I feel like, oh, I have to push through. So I sat for my exam, and I found out that I didn't pass my exam by 4 points. Step 1 is a big freaking deal. I had all these dreams of just scoring high so that, you know, I could be at any program that I want to be. And then life happened to me, and I didn't reach my goal, and I couldn't I didn't pass the test, and that was just so embarrassing to me because I never, I had failures before, but I never been so hurt. And it was just like, who do you talk to about something like that? Because it's like this big taboo in medicine that you're supposed to be perfect and you can't fail, like you're not a fucking human being. So I found out I failed, and I was still on a rotation, and I had to go to work. I had to go to rotation because, like I said, those same people in my corner, I remember Nakia again saying, you gotta go to work. My mother saying, you gotta go because if you don't go, they're gonna look at you a certain way. I'm already feeling imposter syndrome. I'm already feeling inadequate. And now I just failed a major exam that all of my fucking classmates get to pass, no problem. So I'm angry, and I have to go into rotation dealing with people that are already trying to make me feel like shit. I had this one doctor that I was working with, and he was just so fucking mean. I didn't know how to read him. I didn't know what he wanted me to do. And I always try to excel. I always try to be, my number one thing is always trying to be helpful. I was trying to be helpful to this guy, and I just didn't fucking know what he wanted from me. And I had to deal with that after just finding out that I failed a major exam. And I had to continue that rotation and continue applying to school, even though I knew this was going to be a big strike against me. So I worked, I put in work, I attended a program, this intensive schedule, still with a baby, all day, all night, secluded in my apartment. Like, I saw those walls in my apartment I know everybody's been in quarantine, but I felt like it was jail to me. I had to study and study and study. I was putting my all into it. And then I sat for the test again. I was like, that day, I was like, you know, I feel good. God, I worked so hard for this. I worked. I deserve this just as much as anybody else deserves this shit. And I sat and took the test, and I did not pass by 2 points again. Like, this has never, ever happened to me. Why? I'm like, just kept asking why? Why do I have to go through so much? Why am I just missing things by a little bit of point? Like, what makes me different from everybody else around? And it was just crazy to me. Like, this was happening to me again. Like, I was at home, thankfully, and my mother was just like, people must have heard me, like the neighborhood must have heard me crying, and they were like concerned, like there's something, like if someone passed away. It felt like I was mourning again. And like I said, my grandmother just passed away. I did not even get to fully mourn my grandmother's death because I went right back into rotation, and it was just like, damn, why? Like, I still didn't understand why. Like, I deserved it. Like, it was like not even a point away. Like, I think I got like a 193 and passing was like a 194. What question would have made a difference for me to pass versus not pass? And yes, everybody like say, oh, you know, you never know what happens. Like, you wouldn't just want to pass by 1 point because like if you pass, like that's the score that you have. But it was just like, yes, I didn't want to pass. I did not want to have to go through this again. So imagine like feeling broken. Like, it was just like, I just kept on being broken. And like, I just had to stand. I had no choice but to try again. And I hated it. I hated every moment of it. It caused me so much anxiety. Like, I was in seclusion, away from my family, away from my friends. And everybody knows that I love my family and I love my friends. And I'm just like, oh my God, here we go again. Like, it was just a fear, like, am I ever gonna pass the fucking test again in my life? Like, I never had this problem throughout my years of medical school with passing. Like, I had, you know, I was close at a lot of times, but I always made it through. And it was just, since 2020 started, I wasn't making it, and it was just tearing me up. And I just try to hold faith. I try to like ask God, like, you know, please help me. Like, I really think I'm just trying to do something for the world. Like, I'm trying to do something to, like, I'm sacrificing my life because I'm trying to be something that can inspire other people. Like, I'm trying to make global change. Like, I'm trying to inspire other Black people to, you know, be doctors. Why are all the roads and the mountains getting just higher and higher and higher? Like, what I like feel like I be saying, like, do I have to sell my soul to get this medical degree? Like, cause at that point it felt like that. But, you know, again, I did the program again. I did the 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Still was a mom, still was, you know, a daughter, still was a fiance. Like, I did all of that, and I ended up December 30th sitting for the test, and 2 weeks later finding out that I passed. And I was just like, thank God finally. But it's still like, thank God finally, but still, like, now I have all these roadblocks against me. Like, I have these red flags. Like, I failed this test twice, maybe, like, it's gonna be harder for me to get into a residency program because of this test. So that was just like, probably like the toughest time in my life.
You deserve better. You really do, and I'm really sorry. I mean, this to me just feels like the very bare minimum, and I never feel like it's enough. I mean, you just, this feels so Like, of course, everybody, what are we even doing here if people are, anyway. And it certainly is one of my concerns about the School of Medicine, that we don't have enough faculty who reflect either the population of students or the population of patients, and that's problematic. I am happy to do what I can, and also I recognize that as a white woman, I don't share all of the challenges that my students of color have, and I have my own biases and I have my own blind spots, and I'm so grateful that people will trust me, and when I screw up will say nicely, like, hey, you use this language about X, Y, or Z, and it really is not what we say anymore, or you made this about you instead of about what it needs to be about, but I'm happy that I can serve this role, and yet you deserve so much more.
I think when we start, and this is especially true of physicians, like when you start at a young age or in elementary school or high school thinking about, I'm going to be a doctor, and you don't really know what that means yet, and you try to form those ideas, you can hit so many barriers along the way, and then that might make you feel like, well, maybe medicine isn't right for me. And you really have to know something deep inside you about why you want to strive to this. Like, doctors go through a lot of hard work to get to where they are, right? And a lot of hard, long hours of studying and learning and standing on your feet doing surgeries and not sleeping. It all has to be worth something in the end. And it might not be what you think it is when you're in 6th grade, right? It might be very different when you come out of it, but I think as long as that basic need of what you're trying to fulfill is there, you're going to succeed, right? So even if it's not the same patients, if it's not the same diseases, whatever it is that you're working with, that you thought you were going to be working with, as long as you come out happy, successful in what you're doing because you are making a difference for some group of people, even being very small in what your goal is and saying, I achieved this goal. And then moving on to the next goal, right? Like for me, it was focusing on my family was a goal for me for a long time. And then now it's, now I need to focus on society and focus on these big issues. And at some point it might be I need to focus on myself, right? And I need to think about what I need. But you're going to be different. Even in the 4 years of medical school, you're different when you get out than when you came in. You're a completely different person because of all the experiences that you've been through.
I just wanted to talk about why I decided to make this documentary, and I feel like that is because I strongly believe that seeing is believing that you can do something. So if a 5-year-old girl from the Bronx sees me as a Black woman in medicine, coming from the same neighborhood she's coming from, going to the same KIPP school she went to, she's gonna really feel like I could become a doctor. And I never really had that when throughout my younger years. I never saw Black doctors. I never remember any encounter with minority women in medicine. So I really want to start inspiring from as young as possible and trying to target. Mentorship is something I'm really passionate about. I will pretty much give anybody my number, email, who is interested in medicine to, sit down, and that takes time to just talk to them and say anything, any advice you need, any questions you have, let me know. I'm always here for you. So I wanted to kind of extend what I'm doing in terms of mentorship and have this documentary where I could just screen it. And I think my main goal will be to try to go to New York City and Connecticut public schools, even high school, middle school, and just have a screening day, show the film and then have food and fun, and then you could just ask me any questions about the path it took me to be almost a doctor, or just anything, whatever you want to be in life, you can be. When I was a little girl, I thought I wanted to be a doctor, and here I am 28 years old, like I got one more year and you could call me Dr. Wynter. So I just want to be able to do something for mentorship for children especially, and just any person in life. Like, just, I know a lot of people feel inspired by my story just based on like what I post on like social media, just like my regular day stuff. I thought it would be really cool to like just document a lot of what I've been through, so I could like inspire someone to go back to school who really thought that they didn't have it in them anymore. So that's just my goal. I want to spread love, I want to spread kindness, I want to spread empathy, and I just want people to really within themselves know that there's so much power that you have within yourself that you could just try until you succeed.